I wrote in a recent post about the crazy con of carbon credits that is ruining many companies in our country and indeed throughout the world. Talk about the money-making of the climate change con. You know, a hotel we're staying in Europe next year are charging €10 per night for climate crisis resilience. How crazy is that? And it's not the first time I've come across such charges, all for the environment. Yeah, right. Everyone is cashing in on it, while the likes of you and me have to pay. But I was mentioning the sad loss of 600 jobs in Timaru's meatworks just recently at their closure that was announced. And why are they closing? Quite simply, it's all because of this crazy con of carbon credits that companies are trying to buy plant trees to meet their ESG, which is another con. New Zealand once had 60 million sheep when I was growing up, but just like the recent culling of the cows, the reason for the Timaru's meatwork closure and others is that now freezing works do not have enough meat to process. Now we need to wake up, New Zealand. The globalists, the greenies, want you to eat bugs instead. Remember, one of the 2030 World Economic Forum goals, you will eat less meat, but be allowed an occasional treat. Really? You know, for once, having 60 million sheep, New Zealand is now down to 24 million and dropping, all because we are conned into the planting of pine trees for carbon credits. Now, these pine forests are taking up good pasture land. In fact, they ruin the land, 942,000 hectares and counting. And by the way, have you seen the mess that these pine forests make? You don't have to go down to the East Coast, Gisborne region to see that. Talk about taking care of the planet. Yeah, right. While the globalists fly around in their private jets, the DeVos elite, the BlackRock and the likes, you know, they're pressuring small companies to offset their carbon emissions by purchasing credits, planting of trees and pine trees at that. Now, pine trees may be cheap to plant, but are one of the lowest oxygen producing tree. So what a load of garbage this all is. It's just another making con. It's a way to destroy small business and the economy at the same time. I hope you know that the fear of climate change is widely disputed by many top scientists as they say it's not CO2 that is causing any climate change. The climate has been forever changing. Even common sense tells you that. And it's certainly not the cows or the sheep flatulating. I mean, how thick can you be and still breathe to believe that? Or maybe we should all stop breathing according to Davos. Even though taxpayers have just spent $130 million on a satellite to monitor our cows flatulating. I mean, that's just getting crazy. I've been a farmer. I love the cows. I love the sheep. And by the way, I've worked in both Waitara Freezing Works and the Golden Downs Forestry planting pine trees in my younger days. So I have a bit more experience than most in all of these three industries. But I also hope that you know, as I mentioned, the planet's climate has always been changing. In fact, our atmosphere has been hotter in the past than it is today. Our recently reported Kiwi scientists drilling down the South Pole declare that. Likewise, most would know that Florida's just had another huge, large hurricane named Helene, devastating destruction. Of course, you know, they talk about climate change causing it, and it's a sad loss of 116 lives so far. A side note, as beautiful as it is in Florida, I'm not sure why anyone would want to build a house on the beach because these hurricanes have been coming in for centuries. Since 1851, there have only been 18 hurricane seasons that have passed without a known storm impacting the state of Florida, while there have been other hurricanes during that time, of course, at other states. But collectively, cyclones that have hit Florida have resulted in over 10,000 deaths. The news would try and tell us that it's getting worse, yet the worst recorded hurricane to hit Florida was September 18, 1926, called the Great Miami Hurricane. Then the second worst was Okeechobee, and I pronounced it wrong, Okeechobee Hurricane made landfall on September the 6th, 1928. Then the Labor Day, September the 2nd, 1935. Then there was Hurricane Kamal in August 16, 1969. They say that was the second most intense hurricane on record. However, the actual maximum sustained winds were never known because the hurricane destroyed all the wind recording instruments in the landfall. The estimates on the coast were over 200 miles an hour. A storm surge of 24.6 feet occurred at St. Bay in Louise, Mississippi. The combination of winds surges and rainfalls caused 256 deaths in this hurricane alone. On the eve of the Hurricane Camille's arrival, there was a group of young people staying on the top floor of a Holiday Inn. They refused to evacuate because they were having a hurricane party. Well, the Holiday Inn, 3 stories tall, when the tidal wave hit it, 24.6 feet slammed into it. The building was leveled to ground and everybody died. The tidal wave was so forceful that ocean ships were carried along the wave, crashed into shore, and these ocean ships were so large they could not be removed from the beach. Thus, they've been turned into restaurants. Now, every home and store along the coast was destroyed that night. Since recording, approximately 500 tropical, subtropical cyclones have affected the state of Florida. So what am I saying? Hurricanes are nothing new, and they have been just as bad as the one today. The news program today is to scare people and to get people to buy into the globalist agenda. Just as we hear so often, the news, the hottest day, it sounds so bad. You know, scorching heat and all this. Then they add, since 1920 or something. In fact, the one hottest day ever recorded in New Zealand was actually back in 1973. And it's so sad to see all the school kids who are out protesting about something they've been sadly, falsely brainwashed about. And to be honest, many know little about. But they've been filled with fear by the propaganda machine once again, just as they did with COVID. The powers to be have made such false protections in the past to put fear into people. They never apologize. This planet is not in danger of being destroyed by climate change. It's the folly and the sinfulness of man that is doing a good job destroying himself, man thinking he can do without God. Just as here in New Zealand, just as Biden and Harris did in the USA, just as they did in the left with Germany and other countries, and our left globalist government shut down our Marsden Point, our oil refinery. Not only that, but stopped our offshore drilling for oil and natural gas. So now we have to import it all. Makes no sense, of course. So many companies are struggling, apart from being overburdened with all the red tape of councils and the overkill of health and safety, carbon tax, ECG, and, hey, look at this. ECG, by the way, stands for Environmental Social Governance. It's all to do with sustainability, equity, and diversity. Aren't you just sick of those words? ECG was introduced by the United Nations in 2004 and is being monitored by the Big Four accounting practices. Along with the likes of BlackRock, Vanguard, who pretty much own the whole world, they restrict lending and making it hard for companies who do not meet the standards, a target of carbon emissions, diversity of staff, etc., set by the powers to be. I wrote the other day, here's a pill for all Kiwis to swallow. The current cleanest energy on the planet is actually nuclear energy. But with our nuclear-free bumper stickers, I guess we'll have to stick with coal, right? But China's going to have plenty, so don't worry. Most greenies know, but they will not acknowledge or recognize that all the electric cars they want us to drive are mostly charged with coal-fired power stations. And by the way, I see them blowing up and catching fire in the floods in the latest hurricane in Florida, let alone the disposal of the worn-out used electric car batteries that are causing huge environmental problems. They also don't want to acknowledge that all the solar panels that the environmentalists want us to install and take over more farmland leach into the ground, making the soil unusable for coming generations. And just like the used electric car batteries, the disused old solar panels broken by hailstorms, etc., the used wind farm blades, all non-biodegradable and all causing massive waste issues environmentally. I am sure all the school kids will come to the senses when they have to eat bug burgers instead of hamburgers. Well, at least I hope so.